Alright friends, I'm back with video number 2 in our t-shirt quilt series. This is a 3-part series, and today we're going to deal with the t-shirts that don't want to behave. The ones that are just not fitting into our plan. And our plan is just a simple grid of 9-inch finish blocks. So I'm trying to square these all up to 9.5 inches so that it'll be super easy. Let's start with this first one. First of all, this is like a slinkier fabric. You can't feel it, and we already processed it, so I can't read the label, but this is definitely some kind of polyester. Will still work fine. I did already fuse my interfacing to the back, but now I need to figure out how to square this one up. Now you always want to make sure that you have your 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around. And this will fit okay up against there. It means that it's not going to be balanced in terms of this margin is bigger than this margin. And so this is where, if we want it to look like, if centering is a goal of ours, we're going to go to the rule of thirds. And that is to say that if you're dividing things up into thirds, you want 1/3 on the top and 2/3 on the bottom. It's called optically centered. So I'm going to bring 1/3 right here. That's 1/4 inch. Let me explain this. You've got your 1/4 inch seam allowance and then a 1/4 inch, right? So there'll be 1/4 inch showing on this quilt. And down at the bottom, I've got my 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then I want a 1/2 inch, which I just barely don't have, but it's pretty close. And so that will make it really eye pleasing, or pleasing to the eye. And I've got it pretty close centered on either side, so I can square this one up. That's not too terrible. And once I've got this all squared up, take this, throw it in my shirt bin, and you can see that's going to look pretty good when it's put in the quilt. Done. Okay. Now I have this one. This is really close to our neckline here, which is not ideal. And this is my 1/4 inch. If I wanted to stitch right up against that, that's my 1/4 inch. Not loving how close that is. So I want to bring this up. And right now, here's my 1/4 inch seam allowance. So this neckline is going to be in my seam allowance. And all that bulk from the neckline is going to be in my seam allowance. So I actually want to bring it up a little further. And I'm lining up this bottom here to try to get it lined up straight. Now my 1/4 inch seam allowance is going to be right here. And you're going to get a little edge of this shirt in the quilt. And I think that's going to look super cute. That's just going to look a little like it's an authentic t-shirt quilt because it has t-shirt bits in it, right? It's like when something is like authentically denim, it has the rivets or it has the jeans pocket in it. Okay? So we'll see a little bit of that ribbing in our t-shirt quilt and it'll make it feel authentic, and that's super fun. Now this one is a stinker. And you can see with this one, again, just like all of them, I've already fused my interfacing. But if I want a 1/4 inch seam, my 1/4 inch seam allowance would be there. And I'd be right up against this. I have a whole inch down here. Not cute. So, 1/4 inch seam allowance here. Centering it on the other side. Okay. I've got some decisions to make here on this one. This one is a true stinker. I was hoping that I'd be able to cut something like this, and then I would just put another piece of leftover t-shirt material behind, do like a stitch in the ditch along this neckline, and be able to add that piece of t-shirt material behind, and you'd really see the V of that V-neck. It'd be super cute. But this design is really big, and even if I bring my 1/4 inch to the bottom of my Mr. Chase down here, my 1/4 inch up here is hitting right there. So you wouldn't actually see any of this. Other options are to see about pivoting this. I could pivot it like this. So let me turn the whole shirt so you see a little better. And this would be my square. I don't love that either. So I just have to make a decision that I'm not going to love. And in this case, I'm just going to go with the easiest decision, which is I'm going to cut this so that I have my full 1/4 inch seam allowance. You'll see just a tiniest little sliver of that neckline. It won't be as cute as being able to see a whole chunk of neckline, but it is what it is. And there we go. So after the 1/4 inch seam allowance comes off, you'll be able to see just a little tuck of that V right there. And we'll have a little bit of a bulkier seam, but that's okay. Okay, I'm going to use this shirt as an example here. We're not going to cut into this, but to talk about some other potential like T-shirt quilt catastrophes that you could have when working on your T-shirt quilt. So you could need to cut way up here, like maybe I wanted this design here and here, and I would be cutting this. Super easy. I would interface one of my other t-shirts and tuck it behind here, and I would pick a gray or a black shirt intentionally so that you would really see that pop. I want this to show. If it's going to be in my quilt, I want it to look intentional, even if the intention was not my choice. Another kind of stinker problem that you can run into is if you need to go all the way into a sleeve. Totally fine. You can absolutely go into a sleeve, and it's not a problem. Not a problem at all. You just cut, and then you have that sleeve seam. Looks super authentic. It's a t-shirt quilt. It's supposed to look like it was made out of t-shirts. Now, another problem that you can have, especially if you're working with shirts from like through the years, so like their kindergarten shirts all the way up to their senior and high school shirts, and kids, man, they grow, right? So those little itty bitty kindergartner t-shirts that really just like overwhelmed them, to these high school kids who have these XL t-shirts and trying to fit those all in the same t-shirt quilt. So the easiest way to manage that is to make all of your blocks the same size in the end. So in this case, you can see this, I folded this in. So we're going to pretend that this is our shirt, and you can see there's not enough room, like, but just barely, but still there's not enough room. So what I would do with this is I would actually, making sure I had my 1/4 inch seam allowance at least, is I would cut it here and here and here. And then on this side, I would add a strip of another fabric. It could be like a favorite fabric, or it could just be a strip from one of the other shirts, a back of a shirt, an inside of a shirt, and add that right in here to finish out this block so that it's the same size square as all of the other squares. Because when all your squares are the same size, you can grid it together and it makes it really easy. Now, there are some folks who like to make t-shirt quilts that you can really see all the different sizes in there, and they puzzle that together, and that's really fun. And if you want to measure all your quilt pieces or all your shirts in the minimum maximum sizes that you have from them and grid it all out on graph paper, go you. For me, finish is my favorite, so I want to get it done looking beautiful and super gift worthy, but without spending 6 years on it. This project has already taken me a year because it's been sitting in a box for a year. So getting it done is the most important part. and having it look really nice. So having all of my pieces squares so that they can easily grid together, for me, that's the best choice. Okay, here I have that square and I've cut it with that collar opening. I've taken, this is a gray shirt, added some interfacing to the back. And I want to sew these two together. Now I want to keep it all flat while I am sewing this. So I have my favorite hack, and that's just to use a little bit of Elmer's glue. This is just Elmer's school glue. Make a thin little bit on there. And since that collar is so thick, I'm going to put this behind and then press from behind. Now the pressing does two things. It helps squish the glue really flat, and it heat sets that glue so that it stays secure. The glue's not going to hurt anything. It's non-toxic school glue. And now you can see they're together for me to be able to sew. Now you have some decisions here on how to sew. Do you want to just stitch in a ditch right here and then leave this collar open? That's fun. I'll stitch in the ditch right here, and then I will stitch right next to the edge right here because I don't want this to become a crumb catcher. You could also do an applique stitch here on the edge, or a zigzag if that's your style. I'm not a huge zigzag stitcher, but that's also an option. So I'm just going to do 2 quick lines of stitching to stitch that in place. And let's bring the sewing machine over. This is just a single stitch, just a straight stitch, same stitch you would do, sorry, the same stitch you would do if you were just piecing. And there, you can lock your stitches at the beginning and end if you want, but this is going to be in the seam, so you don't have to. Alright, needle up, press your foot up, cut the thread, and now I'm just going to do another set right here. Just right up against that edge. There we go. So this has been stitched here and then stitched along that edge. And now on the back, I want to take out the extra bulk here. So I'm going to cut, and I can feel really comfortable cutting right close up against this first stitching edge because I have a second stitching edge. I don't really need any seam allowance. There we go. Get the extra over here as well. And now I can get my ruler and square this up. And there we go. And now you can see that collar, and isn't that so fun? It really is a t-shirt bit in a t-shirt quilt. So what might have been a, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna be able to make this work, really just became a fun design element in our quilt. And that's what I want you to think about when you're putting together your, or when you're cutting your blocks and you have one that's being ornery. It is actually giving you an opportunity to have a really fun design element. And when you think about it that way, it's not a problem. It's not even really a challenge. It's an opportunity. If you have any questions, comments, any other stinker problems that you come into on your t-shirt quilt, go ahead and leave those down in the comments. And also you can read through the comments and see what other stinker problems people have when putting their t-shirt quilts together and contribute to the answers and discussion down there. That's it for today, my friends. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up, that you're subscribed to this channel, and I will see you right here real soon. Because we have part 3 of this video coming soon, and that's putting this all together.